I'm back. Did you miss me? I hope you didn't miss me much. I hope you did, but let's continue. Braggarts have feelings of inferiority. Youth. Maybe so, but okay, let's start from here so that you know the context. This is what the philosopher says in the previous chapter. It's simply that it is scary to take even one step forward. Also, that you don't want to make realistic efforts. You don't want to change so much that you would be willing to sacrifice the pleasures you enjoy now. For instance, the time you spend playing and engaged in hobbies. In other words, you are not equipped with the courage to change your life. It's easier with things just as they are now, even if you have some complaints or limitations. Braggarts have feeling of inferiority. Youth. Maybe so, but philosopher. Further, you harbor an inferiority complex about education and think, I am not well educated, so I can't succeed. Put the other way around. The reasoning can be, if only I were to be well educated, I could be really successful. Youth. True. Philosopher. This is the other aspect of the inferiority complex. Those who manifest their inferiority complexes in words or attitudes, who say that A is the situation so B cannot be done, are implying that only if it were not for A, I would be capable and have value. Youth. If only it weren't for this, I could do it too. Philosopher. Yes. As Adler points out, no one is capable of putting up with having feelings of inferiority for a long period of time. Feelings of inferiority are something that everyone has, but staying in that condition is too heavy to endure forever. Youth. Huh? This is getting pretty confusing. Philosopher. Okay, let's go over things one at a time. The condition of having a feeling of inferiority is a condition of feeling some sort of lack in oneself in the present situation. So then, the question is, youth, how do you fill in the part that's missing, right? Philosopher. Exactly. How to compensate for the part that is lacking? The healthiest way is to try to compensate through striving and growth. For instance, it could be by applying oneself to one's studies, engaging in constant training, or being diligent in one's work. However, people who aren't equipped with that courage end up stepping into an inferiority complex. Again, it's thinking, I am not well educated, so I can't succeed. And it is implying your capability by saying, if only I were well educated, I could be really successful. That the real me, which just happens to be obscured right now by the matter of education, is superior. Youth. No, that doesn't make sense. The second thing you're saying is beyond being a feeling of inferiority. That's really more bravado than anything else, isn't it? Philosopher. Indeed, the inferiority complex can also develop into another special mental state. Youth. And what is that? Philosopher. I doubt you have heard much about it. It's the superiority complex. Youth. Superiority complex? Philosopher. One is suffering from strong feelings of inferiority, and on top of that, one doesn't have the courage to compensate through healthy modes of striving and growth. That being said, one can't tolerate the inferiority complex of thinking A is the situation, so B cannot be done. One can't accept one's incapable self. At that point, the person thinks of trying to compensate in some other fashion and looks for an easier way out. Youth. What way is that? Philosopher. It's to act as if one is indeed superior and to indulge in a fabricated feeling of superiority. Youth. A fabricated feeling of superiority? Philosopher. A familiar example would be giving authority. Youth. What does that mean? Philosopher. One makes a show of being on good terms with a powerful person. Broadly speaking, it could be anyone from the leader of your school class to a famous celebrity. And by doing that, one lets it be known that one is special. Behaviors like misrepresenting one's work experience or excessive allegiance to particular brands of clothing are forms of giving authority and probably also have aspects of the superiority complex. In each case, it isn't that the I is actually superior or special. It is only that one is making the I look superior by linking it to authority. In short, it's a fabricated feeling of superiority. Youth. And at the base of that, there is an intense feeling of inferiority. Philosopher. Of course, I don't know much about fashion, but I think it is advisable to think of people who wear rings with rubies and emeralds on all their fingers as having issues with feelings of inferiority rather than issues of aesthetic sensibility. In other words, they have signs of a superiority complex. What? I disagree. I personally disagree. But whatever, let's move on. Youth, right. Wrong. Philosopher. But those who make themselves look bigger on borrowed power are essentially living according to other people's value systems. They are living other people's lives. This is a point that must be emphasized. Youth. So, a superiority complex. That's a very interesting psychology. Can you give me a different example? Philosopher. There's the kind of person who likes to boast about his achievements. Someone who clings to his past glory and is always recounting memories of the time when his light shone brightest. Maybe you know some people like this. All such people can be said to have superiority complexes. Youth. The kind of man who boasts about his achievements? Yes, it is an arrogant attitude, but he can boast because he actually is superior. You can't call that a fabricated feeling of superiority. Philosopher. But you are wrong. Those who go so far as to boast about things out loud actually have no confidence in themselves. As Adler clearly indicates, the one who boasts does so only out of a feeling of inferiority. Youth. You are saying that boasting is an inverted feeling of inferiority? Philosopher. That's right. If one really has confidence in oneself, one doesn't feel the need to boast. It's because one's feeling of inferiority is strong that one boasts. One feels the need to flaunt one's superiority all the more. There's the fear that if one doesn't do that, not a single person will accept one the way I am. This is a full blown superiority complex. Youth. So, though one would think from the sound of the words that inferiority complex and superiority complex were polar opposites, in actuality they border on each other. Philosopher. Yes, they are clearly connected. Now, there is one last example I would like to give. A complex example that deals with boasting. It is a pattern leading to a particular feeling of superiority that manifests due to the feeling of inferiority itself becoming intensified. Concretely speaking, it's bragging about one's own misfortune. Youth. Bragging about one's own misfortune? Philosopher. The person who assumes a boasting manner when talking about his upbringing and the like, the various misfortunes that have rained down upon him. If someone should try to comfort this person or suggest some change be made, he will refuse the helping hand by saying, "You don't understand how I feel." Youth. Well, there are people like that, but Philosopher. Such people try to make themselves special by way of their experiences of misfortune. and with the single fact of their misfortune, try to place themselves above others. Take the fact that I am short, for instance. Let's say that kind hearted people come up to me and say it's nothing to worry about, or such things have nothing to do with human values. Now, if I were to reject them and say, you think you know what short people go through, huh? No one would say a thing to me anymore. I'm sure that everyone around me would start treating me just as if I were a boil about to burst and would handle me very carefully. Or should I say, circumspectly? Youth. Absolutely true. Philosopher. By doing that, my position becomes superior to other people's and I can become special. Quite a few people try to be a special being by adopting this kind of attitude when they are sick or injured or suffering the mental anguish of heartbreak. Youth. So they reveal their feeling of inferiority and use it to their advantage? Philosopher. Yes. They use their misfortune to their advantage and try to control the other party with it. By declaring how unfortunate they are and how much they have suffered, they are trying to worry the people around them, like their family or friends, for example, and to restrict their speech and behavior and control them. The people I was talking about at the very beginning, who shut themselves up in their rooms, frequently indulge in feelings of superiority that use misfortune to their advantage. So much so that Adler himself pointed out in our culture, weakness can be quite strong and powerful. Youth. So, weakness is powerful. Philosopher. Adler says, in fact, if we were to ask ourselves who is the strongest person in our culture, the logical answer would be the baby. The baby rules and cannot be dominated. The baby rules over the adults and his weakness. And it is because of this weakness that no one can control him. Youth. I have never encountered that viewpoint. Philosopher. Of course, the words of a person who has been hurt, you don't understand how I feel, are likely to contain a certain degree of truth. Completely understanding the feelings of a person who is suffering is something that no one else is capable of. But as long as one continues to use one's misfortune to one's advantage in order to be special, one will always need that misfortune. The youth and philosopher had now covered a series of discussion topics: the feeling of inferiority, the inferiority complex, and the superiority complex. Psychology keywords, though they clearly were, the truths they contained differed greatly from the youth's imagined meanings. Still, something didn't feel right to him, somehow. What is it about all this that I am having a hard time accepting? Well, it must be the introductory part, the premise, that is giving me doubts. The youth calmly opened his mouth to speak. Life is not a competition. Youth. But I guess I still don't really get it. Philosopher. Okay, ask me anything you like. Youth. Adler recognizes that the pursuit of superiority, once trying to be a more superior being, is a universal desire, doesn't he? On the other hand, he is striking a note of warning with regard to excessive feelings of inferiority and superiority. It would be easy to understand if he could renounce the pursuit of superiority, then I could accept it. What are we supposed to do? Philosopher. Think about it this way: when we refer to the pursuit of superiority, there's a tendency to think of it as the desire to try to be superior to other people, as the desire to climb higher, even if it means kicking others down. The image of ascending a stairway and pushing people out of the way to get on the top. Adler does not uphold such attitudes, of course. Rather, he's saying that on the same level playing field, there are people who are moving forward and there are people who are moving forward behind them. Keep that image in mind. Though the distance covered and the speed of walking differ, everyone is walking equally in the same flat pace. The pursuit of superiority is the mindset of taking a single step forward on one's own feet, not the mindset of competition of the sort that necessity is aiming to be greater than other people. Youth. So, life is not a competition? Philosopher. That's right. It's enough to just keep moving in a forward direction without competing with anyone. And of course, there is no need to compare oneself with others. Youth. No, that's impossible. We'll always compare ourselves to other people no matter what. That's exactly what our feeling of inferiority comes from, isn't it? Philosopher. A healthy feeling of inferiority is not something that comes from comparing ourselves to others, but from one's comparison with one's ideal self. Youth. But, philosopher, look, all of us are different. Gender, age, knowledge, experience, appearance. No two of us are exactly the same. Let's acknowledge in a positive manner the fact that other people are different from us and that we are not the same, but we are equal. Youth. We are not the same, but we are equal. Philosopher. That's right. Everyone is different. Don't mix up that difference with good and bad and superior and inferior. Whatever differences we may have, we are all equal. Youth. No distinction of rank for people. Idealistically speaking, I suppose so. But aren't we trying to have an honest discussion about reality now? Would you really say, for instance, that I, an adult, and a child who is still struggling with his arithmetic are equal? Philosopher. In terms of the amount of knowledge and experience, and then the amount of responsibility that can be taken, there are bound to be differences. The child might not be able to tie his shoes properly or figure out complicated mathematical equations or be able to take the same degree of responsibility as an adult when problems arise. However, such things shouldn't have anything to do with human values. My answer is the same. Human beings are all equal but not the same. Youth. Then are you saying that a child should be treated like a full grown adult? Philosopher. No, instead of treating the child like an adult or like a child, one must treat them like a human being. One interacts with the child with sincerity as another human being, just like oneself. Youth. Let's change the question. All people are equal, they are on the same level playing field, but actually, there is a disparity here, isn't there? Those who move forward are superior, and those who pursue them from behind are inferior. So we end up at the problem of superior and inferior, don't we? Philosopher. No, we do not. It does not matter if one is trying to walk in front of others or walk behind them. It is as if we are moving through a flat space that has no vertical axis. We do not walk in order to compete with someone. It is trying to progress past who one is now that there is no value. It isn't trying to progress past who one is now that there is value. Youth. Have you become free from all forms of competition? Philosopher. Of course. I do not think about gaining status or honor, and I live my life as an outsider philosopher without any connection whatsoever to worldly competition. Youth. Does that mean you dropped out of competition? That you somehow accepted defeat? Philosopher. No, I withdrew from places that are preoccupied with winning and losing. When one is trying to be oneself, competition will inevitably get in the way. Youth. No way. That's a tired out old man's argument. Young folks like me have to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps amid the tension of competition. It's because I don't have a rival running alongside me that I can't outdo myself. What's wrong with thinking of interpersonal relationships as competitive? Philosopher. If that rival was someone you could call a comrade, it's possible that it would lead to self improvement. But in many cases, a competitor will not be your comrade. Youth. Meaning what exactly? Meaning you are the only one worrying about your appearance. Philosopher. Let's tie up the loose ends. At the outset, you expressed dissatisfaction with Adler's definition that all problems are interpersonal relationship problems, right? That was the basis of our discussion on feelings of inferiority. Youth. Yes, that's correct. The subjects of feelings of inferiority was too intense, and I was on the verge of forgetting that point. Why did you bring up the subject in the first place? Philosopher. It is connected with the subject of competition. Please remember that. If there is competition at the core of a person's interpersonal relationships, he will not be able to escape interpersonal relationship problems or escape misfortune. Youth. Why not? Philosopher. Because at the end of a competition, there are winners and losers. Youth. It's perfectly fine to have winners and losers. Philosopher. Give some thought to it then. If it were you, specifically, who had a consciousness of being in competition with the people around you, in your relations with them, you will have no choice but to be conscious of victory or defeat. Mr. A got into a famous university. Mr. B found work at a big company, and Mr. C has hooked up with such a nice looking woman, and you'll compare yourself to them and think, this is all I've got. Youth. Haha, this is pretty specific. Philosopher. When one is conscious of competition and victory and defeat, it is inevitable that feelings of inferiority will arise because one is constantly comparing oneself to others and thinking, I beat that person or I lost to that person. The inferiority complex and the superiority complex are extensions of that. Now, what kind of being do you think the other person is to you at that point? Youth. I don't know, a rival, I guess. Philosopher. No, not a mere rival. But before you know it, you start to see each and every person, everyone in the whole world as your enemy. Youth. My enemy? Philosopher. You start to think that people are always looking down on you and treating you with scorn, and they are all enemies who must never be underestimated, who lie in wait for any opening and attack at the drop of a hat. In short, that the world is a terrifying place. Youth, enemies who must never be underestimated. That's why I'm in competition with. Philosopher. That is what is so terrifying about competition. Even if you're not a loser, even if you are someone who keeps on winning, if you are someone who has placed himself in competition, you will never have a moment's peace. You don't want to be a loser, and you always have to keep on winning if you don't want to be a loser. You can't trust other people. The reason that so many people don't really feel happy while they are building up their success in the eyes of society is that they are living in competition, because to them the world is a perilous place that is overflowing with enemies. Youth. I suppose so, but. Philosopher. But do other people actually look at you so much? Are they really watching you around the clock and lying in wait for the perfect moment to attack? It seems rather unlikely. A young friend of mine, when he was a teenager, used to spend a lot of time in front of the mirror arranging his hair. And once, when he was doing that, his grandmother said, you are the only one who's worried about how you look. He says that it got a bit easier for him to deal with life after that. Youth. Hey, that's a dig at me, isn't it? Sure, maybe I do see the people around me as enemies. I'm constantly in fear of being attacked of the arrows that could come flying at me at any moment. I always think I am being watched by others and that I am being subjected to harsh judgment and that I am going to be attacked. And it's probably true that this is a self conscious reaction, just like the mirror obsessed teenager. The people of the world aren't paying attention to me. Even if I were to go walking on my hands down the street, they would take no notice. But I don't know. Are you saying, after all, that my feelings of inferiority is something that I chose and has some sort of goal that just doesn't make any sense to me? Philosopher. And why is that? Youth. I have a brother who is 3 years older than I am. He fits the classic image of a big brother. He always does what our parents say. He excels in his studies and in sports, and he is the very picture of diligence. And from the time I was little, I was always compared to him. He is older and more advanced, so of course, I could never beat him at anything. Our parents did not care at all about such circumstances and never gave me any sign of recognition. Whatever I did, I got treated like a child, and I was berated at every opportunity and told to be quiet. I learned to keep my feelings to myself. I have lived my life totally steeped in feelings of inferiority and had no choice but to be conscious of being in competition with my brother. Philosopher. I see. Youth. Sometimes I think of it like this: I am like a god that grew without getting enough sun. So it is only natural that I am all twisted up with feelings of inferiority. If there is anyone who could grow straight in such a situation, well, I would love to meet them. Philosopher. I understand. I really do understand how you feel. Now, let's look at competition while taking into consideration your relationship with your brother. If you didn't think with a competition orientation with regard to your brother and your other interpersonal relationships, how would people seem to you? Well, youth. Well, my brother is my brother, and I guess other people are another story. Philosopher. No, they should not become more positive comrades. Youth. Oh, philosopher. No, they should become more positive comrades. Youth. Comrades. Philosopher. Earlier, didn't you say I can't celebrate other people's happiness with all my heart? You think of interpersonal relationships as competition. You perceive other people's happiness as my defeat, and that is why you can't celebrate it. However, once one is released from the schema of competition, the need to triumph over someone disappears. One is also released from the fear that says, maybe I will lose, and one becomes able to celebrate other people's happiness with all one's heart. One may become able to contribute actively to other people's happiness. The person who always has the will to help another in times of need. That is someone who may properly be called your comrade. Youth. Philosopher. Now we come to the important part. When you are able to truly feel that people are my comrades, your way of looking at the world will change utterly. No longer will you think of the world as a perilous place or be plagued by needless doubts. The world will appear before you as a safe and pleasant place, and your interpersonal relationship problems will decrease dramatically. Youth. What a happy person you are! But that's all like a sunflower. It's the reasoning of a sunflower that is bathed in full sunshine every day and nurtured with ample watering. A gourd grown in the dim shade doesn't do so well. Philosopher. You are returning to etiology, the attribute of causes, again. Youth. Oh, yes, I sure am. Raised by strict parents, the youth has been oppressed and compared to his elder brother ever since childhood. None of his opinions were ever heard, and he was subjected to the violent words that he was a poor excuse for a little brother. Unable to make friends even at school, he spent all his break time alone in the library, which became his sole place of refuge. This youth who had passed his early years in such a way was truly an inhabitant of etiology. If he had not been raised by those parents, if that elder brother had never existed, and if he had not attended that school, he could have had a brighter life. The youth had been trying to participate in the decision as cool headedly as possible, but now his many years of pent up feelings came bursting out. That's all I'm going to read for today. Our next subchapter, if you may, will be from power struggle to revenge. And I'll read it soon for you. Bye.